Hi guys, it's me, Sarah. Obviously, you know this. If you're not new here, that divination witch. I'm here with Serena, and we're going to have a conversation about her path and Persephone and all that jazz. We just wanted to say at the beginning that some of the stuff we will be covering is going to be maybe a bit triggery, maybe a bit serious. At least I think so. I'll let Serena add her caveat on that. But please don't come for any of us over our opinions and opinions, right? We've all got them. Yeah, we can agree to disagree.
I think that the what I want to say as like a warning is one, I have my own opinions, but there are a couple caveats that I want to make. One, I'm very new. So these are my opinions that are made from my own point of view. And two, it is a conversation. We don't have to argue and you don't have to be hateful or hurtful. All this is just a conversation and our opinions and our experiences. And if you want to jump into that conversation in the comments, if you have things that you want to say or educate or have then amazing. Let's have a conversation. We're allowed to have conversations with differing opinions and continue to educate each other. Just like for me, whenever I come forward with an opinion, I want to have a conversation about it. I want to be taught, because I am forever a student and I want to grow. But if you disagree with me, it's not because, I just feel like a lot of times when we find people that we disagree with, a lot of times we tend to lash out when really all we need is just to have a conversation. And I'm open to that. And I hope that you are too.
I'm joined with a special guest today, Serena. You may or may not have seen Serena around on YouTube. She is a Persephone devotee, and I thought it would be interesting to have her as a guest on the channel just to talk about all that jazz, basically. So, hi, Serena, how are you doing?
Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much for having me on your channel. This is my first interview, so I'm very nervous, but I can further introduce myself if you like. I
Yeah,
am
sure.
like you mentioned, I'm a Persephone devotee. I live in Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm getting my master's of acupuncture. So I also am very interested in traditional Chinese medicine, and I'm doing a bunch of things. I'm also a chaos witch, and
Mm.
so I have a very eclectic and practice, and I'm inspired by a lot of things, and I continue to always more. I just love learning and growing.
Yeah, that sounds like me as well. Yeah, I'm very chaotic with my approach to very like, oh, I'm just adjusting my top, by the way, just while I'm here. Like, la la la. I'm not even, yeah, ugh, it has been chaotic anyways, just trying to sort this light out, right, before we started filming. I'm very, technology man. I feel like a boomer sitting here. Anyways.
Pink is my
So,
favorite color, so I'm not complaining.
yeah. I mean, I know Hecate loves purple too, and the channel's very purpley. It's purpley pinky. Fits the
It's
vibe,
a
right?
vibe. It's a
It's a
vibe, yeah.
yeah. Well, I put this top on as well because it's like flowery. I thought, oh, Persephone might like this, and then I'm
Yeah,
like,
of
oh,
course.
bit
It's beautiful.
self-consciousy, like, oh. Well, this is it's casual already. So nice to meet you. Fine. Well, even though we have met before, technically,
Yeah.
I did speak for your channel. I don't know when if that'll be out already or not, but go check out Serena's channel anyways. I'll put it in the links below, as well as my links, don't forget mine. Anyways, so how did you come to meet Persephone then? What's all that about?
So my practice is very different than yours. So I'm really excited for this conversation because we come at our practices from completely different angles. I feel like I
Hmm.
am Persephone. I actually chose Persephone, which I think
Okay.
is not quite what I see online very often is this discussion of I researched the deities, and so I kind of broke down what I was looking for. I wanted to move into deity work, and I grew up Christian for a really long time, and then I was an atheist for about a decade, and then I started getting into my magical practice about 4 or 5 years ago. And I wanted to kind of like work with deity just because deity is honestly a struggle for me as somebody who was like forced into the Christian paradigm for a really long time. So working with a dark goddess felt like a good place for me to start, versus like this benevolent man. And then there's dark
Hmm.
goddess and all the permission that comes with working with dark goddess work and how I could kind of reimagine and reform what deity means in my mind. So I was like, dark goddess work speaks to me very deeply. And then so I kind of got down to two places. It was either Hecate or Persephone. And so I was really looking at what do I personally want? And what I decided, because with Hecate, I felt like she could really help me push my craft. With Persephone, I was like this, and it was a little bit of a difficult choice too, because I feel like there's so much more information on Hecate. And
Hmm.
Persephone, because there's like less information, I'm kind of I'm kind of entering this realm where it's a lot about what do I think? How do I feel? And there's not that like collective gnosis that there is on Hecate. Although, of course, UPG is still really important. When it came to Persephone and I was thinking about all the parts of it, I was like, I get to use my intuition. I get to build self-trust if I choose Persephone. And I think the really deciding factor for me was I really felt like I needed to work on myself as an individual. If I really wanted my craft to grow, I had to get myself right. And when I was looking at descent and shadow work and trying to grow as an individual, Persephone, I just felt at home with her. And I felt like Persephone is where I needed to start personally before I could really become this practitioner that I wanted to be. So my relationship with Hecate has always been not an if, but a when. But I
Yeah.
felt like I needed to kind of go through my maiden phase for a little while and like work with deity and kind of build up some certain relationship with it that worked out personally for me. Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. I mean, I know you say that we might be coming at this very different, and perhaps what I have shared on my YouTube so far, like I've literally just been open and honest about like everything. Uh, maybe too honest sometimes, and I've shared things when I've been, very vulnerable about stuff, and like I look back at some of my most popular videos, and I'm like, oh, that's so cringe. But I do think there is valid, it is a valid thing basically to choose a deity too, because although I am of the belief that deities can and do reach out to us, I mean, I do this for a living. I confirm people's deities, and it doesn't take away from the fact that we reach out to them too. And that's always been the case. Like even in antiquity, people wouldn't be going off getting, well, they might go off and get a reading. It depends where it was, right? There were oracles, but really, if you wanted a certain thing, you would pray to a certain god. You would offer libations and show them respect, right? So, yeah, it totally makes sense to me that you would see it that way. And yeah, I think that needs to be discussed more anyways in pagan communities, because even when people have come to me for deity confirmations, and I try and say in those readings like, look, it's a two-way street. So number one, whoever I pick up on, you don't have to do anything about it if you don't feel ready. Like you saying it's when, it's not if, it's when with Hecate, for example. Like some people may not want to start there, and that's totally fine, and I think it needs to be discussed more. So I'm glad you've mentioned that.
Yeah, it was one of the things that when I first started my channel, which was in August and it's December, so I've only had a channel for a few months, but there's a few things that people really pointed out when I first started my channel. And one of the things that they really pointed out is that I started off that way. In my very first video I posted, I explained that. And a lot of people came to me and they were like, thank you, because you saying that gives me permission to choose too.
Hmm.
And I hear a lot, and this is one of the things I think slowed me down in the beginning too. I hear a lot of these, people like you who are very in touch with deity, and it's like an inherent sort of gift that you have. I don't have that inherent gift. It's something that I have to like work really hard at and like try to open that up for me. It's not, and I'm so jealous of people who have those inherent gifts. Like that's amazing and I wish I had that, but I don't. So I have to come at things from a very different angle. And I feel like, especially online, we see these really grandiose stories of that are amazing and incredible. But sometimes, especially me as a new practitioner, it felt like, oh, I wasn't credible enough. Oh, I wasn't, like I, I, I need more work, or I'm not, this is not right for me. And so giving myself permission to choose and saying, no, I'm going to go about that's the way that works for me. And then saying that out loud, I think has actually meant a lot to a lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah. No, like I say, I agree. I may come across that way. I mean, I know myself, like this has took me years to get to this position where I do this is even a job, and I can help people, and I do have gifts where I can pick up on deities, and I've had people come at me for that, and I'm at a point where I don't care. Like, you don't have to believe me, that's fine. But I never used to be able to do that. I was very much like y yourself. Like, I've had to work through a lot of imposter syndrome, a lot of self-doubt, and like even now, sometimes I compare myself to others too. Uh, when you're not the first one who says about being jealous. I know Izzy, oh, sorry, she goes by Fia now. Apologies, Fia. She's on a podcast with me, goes by the Morrigan's Oracle. She's just changed to Feral Temple, but she heavily works with the Morrigan, uh, and has branched out into other deity work now. And she talked about, like in one of our episodes, how she felt jealous that I had this connection with Hecate, like or envious, something like that. The wording was. I might be misquoting her, but even for me, I just want people to know that look, don't be. uh, I'm not taking that as like just a me thing, by the way. I'm just saying like people start somewhere. We all start somewhere.
Yeah.
And like I started somewhere. I didn't even know how to read tarot or any of this, and even now, sometimes I get intimidated because the way I share my information on my channel. I'm very down to earth with it because that's just the way I am. I I don't like grandiose, like you say, there's all these grandiose stories, right? And I just don't like that. And sometimes I get intimidated by like, especially scholarly people. I'm like, oh, well, I must be so thick, you know? But we're not thick. We're not less than in any capacity. So if you listening to this interview want to choose a deity, choose. That's fine. It doesn't mean it's any less valid at all.
I think that one of the important things is that everybody has gifts. Like everybody has these inherent gifts. And just because you don't have an inherent gift does not mean that it's a skill that you cannot build. So,
Hmm.
like for me, like I really struggle with connection to spirit. It's something that I struggled with for a really long time. I'm getting a lot better through my work with Persephone, but it's a skill that I need to build. And then I meet
Yeah,
other people who have an inherent skill, inherent gift. You still have to hone that gift, right? Like,
yeah.
and there are good and bad things to everything. Like there's bad things about a gift. I have some friends who are very psychically in tune. They're like, I have a hard time grounding myself. So
Hmm.
it's like I think that just because a lot of times when we look at something, and that's what happened to me when I looked at something, I'm like, oh, I don't have this inherent gift, therefore I am not worthy. But now I'm under the mindset with, no, it's a skill that I need to hone. But I have
Yeah,
other gifts that I'm really good at, and I'm going to continue to use those, my skill set, and then also hone the things I need work with in order to grow as an individual. And sometimes we just need permission to do that.
yeah.
And that's actually one of the reasons why I started my series Beneath the Bloom. It's an interview series that I actually just had you on because I think sometimes when we come onto these online spaces, we see these practitioners who have honed their skills for 10, 15, 20, 40 years, and they
Hmm.
come on and they speak about things. And then we, as new practitioners, we don't see the full story. So getting the backstory of where did you come from? Like who were you before you were this version of yourself, and understanding that there's people have are much fuller spectrum than what we see online, I think helps give context and understanding to understand the person that we see in front of us better, and also understanding ourselves better and
Yeah.
where we're at in our lives, and not to compare ourselves.
Yeah. And it's a shame that I don't think many people are willing to do that. Like, obviously, you've got your series, I've been a part of it, and there's some amazing people that I've seen on it already, and probably amazing people to come. But I know myself, I've had run-ins with people who would not be so vulnerable and so open, you know what I mean? And I think that is a problem in itself as well. Like, you do this work we do attracts egotistical people. Let's just put it like that. It does. And I think we need more open and honest people to break through that, because yeah, it's not healthy to be comparing ourselves all the time. We are ourselves. You are you, I am me. Yeah, we've got our own skills that we can bring to the table. So when you chose Persephone and everything, okay, so how has that like developed? How has that transformed you, so to speak?
Oh my gosh, that's such a big question. So it started off small. It really started off small. One of the first things I did was, and so well, let me start with this. Really, when I started my relationship with Persephone is, and I still kind of talk about things in this way, although my relationship with her has changed a lot, is it was archetypal work,
Yeah.
because that to me was something I could give myself permission to do. Working with deity is something I had to work myself up to. Like, this is a deity that I'm working with. But
Hmm.
instead, if I started with, and like I said, I struggled with deity work a lot, is can I look at this as a psychological archetype? Then I have my brain allows me to believe it more,
Yeah.
versus like, is this a god? And so I feel like what I started off with is working with things with psychological archetypes. So she was an archetype that I wanted to bring on, and there were a few things that really drew me to her. One is, of course, she is the goddess of spring and queen of the underworld, and I really have always felt dualistic in who I am. So I'm half Korean, I'm half American white. It's like a whole mix in there. But I just, for ease of
Yeah.
conversation, I'm half Korean, half white. And so, like, I've always lived this very dualistic life, from like intrinsically who I am culturally. I grew up in South Korea. I also grew up in the United States. And I've always kind of been, I'm also a Gemini. Like, things are very dualistic in me. And even studying traditional Chinese medicine, the basis of traditional Chinese medicine is yin and yang. It's the basis of
Yeah.
Taoism as well. So, this idea that she can be both and hold both, and allowed me to kind of break free from some of the Christian dogma that I still struggle with today, and deconditioning that things are black and white, which sounds almost opposite of what I'm trying to say, right? But Persephone allows you to hold multiple truths at once.
Hmm.
And that to me was like, sometimes we need to break things down into black and white into order, better understand them, but understanding that you can be both and you can hold both. And you need a balance of both in order to um, live a fuller life, I would argue. And it's the same thing in traditional Chinese medicine, actually. Like, your body is a climate, and we need to balance out the climate in order to make sure that you're functioning normally. um Persephone, I think, first and foremost, she allowed me to hold multiple truths at once, that I can be like, this spring version of myself. I can be a maiden, and that doesn't need to go away. But there are times in which I need to also pull in this queen of the underworld archetype, and I can be that too. And I don't have to choose one or the other. So I think when I first started working with Persephone, that was one of the things that she gave me permission to hold those multiple archetypes and allow myself to be all of these things. And then when we start with black and white, when we start working with black and white, we realize that there's a spectrum in between, that there's all these shades of gray. And so I think that working with her has kind of allowed me to understand the spectrum that I am, and holding all these multiple truths. And I don't know if I'm doing a good job of articulating this,
No, you
but
are.
that is,
I
yeah,
mean,
that's really what I feel like, first and foremost, the first big lesson I learned from her.
yeah. Well, it's interesting you say archetypes, because even though I myself believe deities are higher powers and believe they are their own beings and whatever, I know not everyone does, and that's fair enough. I never force my beliefs on anyone else. But even though I believe they are higher powers, and I think this would be important for anyone listening to maybe take on board, the deities we are drawn to, or maybe they've been drawn to us or whatever, there's a reason for it because they are reflections of our psyche, and it's whether it's what we need to work on or improve or understand about ourselves in some capacity. So it does sound like that, even though, yeah, at the time you've gone at it as like, oh, it's just a mental state in a way, like a mental archetype, but it's still, yeah, impacting you, isn't it, in that way?
Yeah, and it's funny because if you I someone asked me this recently, it's like, do I actually see her as deity now? And it's a complicated answer because I think that I kind of go back to my chaos magic point of view where I don't think it
Yeah,
really matters. Like,
yeah,
I think that if it gets you results and it makes sense for your reality, like your reality is your reality and you're co-creating it. I don't think that we are 100% in control of our reality all the time either. I think that we're co-creating with like a chaos element. Not chaos magic, but just like chaos and cosmos in general,
yeah, yeah.
that concept. But I think that it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. I think that you will never find the answer of whether or not deities are real. You'll never have that answer. So focus less on what the answer is and focus more on what is getting you results, what is making your life better. You know, whether she is an actual deity, whether she is an egregore, whether she is just spicy psychology. My opinion changes all of the time, and I think it will continue to. But again, I focus less on what the actual answer is and focus more on, hey, does believing it's a deity for you, does that help you? Does that make your life better? Does it make you feel more comfortable? Does it allow you to grow as an individual? Have at it. It's not, you don't know the answer, neither do I. And I think we don't need to like really argue about something when we're never going to have the answer. Does that make sense?
Mm. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to think of how to respond to that because I can understand where you're coming from. I can. Because really, we can think we have the answers to anything. And do we really? Do we really? Like, this is really deep thought, isn't it? Oh, I wasn't prepared for such a deep
Sorry.
thought. No, it's all right. I'm like, oh,
I'm
like
so bad at casual conversation. I'm really, really bad at casual
no, you're
conversation.
not bad. It's cool, honestly. No, no. Like this is how it should be, Like I can totally like I can get where you're coming from. And for me, like even me, I'm like, see, I used to be more like you, okay? And maybe that doesn't come across in my videos because my reality, let's say my little microcosm, I never believed any of this was real. At one point, I used to take the piss out of people like us and go, he's a nut job, sort of thing. To think like, what? It's a ghost? Are you for real? Like, you tapped, that's the way I would have seen it. Yeah, right. And it was partly out of fear. I kind of believed in this kind of thing, but I wasn't sure. And now, you see, even when I was a baby witch, I kind of tackled it similar to you, and we've got a story which I know you know my story about me and Persephone as well, where I did seek out deities after Hecate made herself aware to me. I think it was a bit different because she's made me have blind faith leaps in things that I'm like, but what if? But what if? And then I just go, oh fuck it, and now I just totally. I can't unbelieve in a sense that there is a higher power and to me, that is Hecate. And that to me, that she can express in many ways, she or he, they can come to you as Persephone, as whoever, as Hades, whoever. That's just the way I see it. So I get it though. I get it because we don't know the answers. And really, although I label this force Hecate, do I know the answer? In my little world, I do, but not in your world, not in someone else's world. And yeah, so
Yeah. And I feel like I think that we would all do a lot better if we gave each other permission to do that. Like that
Yeah,
makes sense for your reality and that makes sense for your practice. And she has made you believe in this deity and this higher power. And how beautiful and wonderful is that? And how she has changed your life for the better in all these incredible ways and all the ways that you give back working
hmm
with her. Like, that is incredible. And it's not my job to sit here and tell you whether or not Hekate is real or not real. That is real
exactly.
for you and beautiful, you know, and
Yeah,
that's wonderful. And I feel like we get so caught up in like certain arguments sometimes, but we're basing
hmm
everything off of our own real reality because it's
hmm
really all you can speak up from, right? It's like my knowledge, my
exactly,
conditioning, my reality. And I'm going to tell you whether something is wrong or right. Yes and no, but there's a whole spectrum of gray in between. And
exactly.
if it works for you, it works for you. So have at it.
Exactly. And I like that mindset. And I like that you've brought this up and we're having this conversation because there's sadly a lot of people that would not, so f for me, even though I've explained my thing there, and I admit I find it a little bit difficult, but I also understand, and I would never shut you up. I would never say you're wrong, because you're not wrong, because I'm not 100% right either. No one knows, like you've already said, but there are people out there in the occult circles who would not act like that, and that's a worrying thing to me. I've rubbed people up the wrong way because I've kind of rocked their reality by questioning and they get defensive. I think that's a human thing.
One of the things I talk about in the Pomegranate Path, which is the series where I model, where I use the Jungian model of the mind, and then I also use Persephone's distant story and link them together in order to make better sense of psychology and archetypal work, and also Persephone's distant story model, mind model and myth is basically what it is. And one of the things I talk about a lot is our attachment to ego. And not ego just in the egotistical sense, ego in the sense of this is what I almost equate to like our rising sign, where it's like
Yeah,
this version of ourselves that we've created in order to better navigate the world. And we need to have this ego. We need to have this structure. We need to have, if we completely dissolve that ego, it doesn't get us anywhere. Now, sometimes we need to break it down and build it back up better, build a better relationship with it, which is basically what I'm trying to do with the pomegranate path. But a lot of times we get so attached to this identity that
hmm
we are afraid to let it go. And when something comes in and it rattles that that sense of identity that we have, that is the foundation that we've built ourselves off of. And it's very scary when someone comes in and they rattle that. And some people are kind of almost incapable of allowing their ego to be threatened at all,
yeah,
and that's a lot of times when we see people who are very reactive or tried to tell you something different or tried to, they like attack. And we can see that a
yeah,
lot within, everywhere in our lives is like you are shaking my reality. And that's very scary to me because I haven't built up the skills that I need in order to better understand your perspective and understand that it doesn't change the validity of my
exactly.
reality. And I think that it's like one of the I haven't really talked about this on my channel at all, but one of the things is like I am not Christian anymore, right?
Yeah,
But I am very supportive of my parents being Christian. Like I'm very, very supportive. My sister is Christian. I'm so supportive of that because as long as you're not taking your rights away from other people, as long as you're not telling other people what they can and cannot do, like,
hmm
that's all that matters to me. Believe what you want to believe at the end of the day. If that makes sense to you, that does not shake my reality, but it
hmm
gives you a sense of purpose and a sense of peace and a sense of meaning where all of this feels very meaningless a lot of times.
hmm No, that's a perfect way of putting it. It really is. And I wish more people could do that. I'm not perfect with that myself. I don't think anyone is to an extent because
I'm
the
not either.
ego,
Yeah.
yeah, it is that our sense of being, and especially when someone challenges that, it's your sense of self. It's who you are, right? And it's like, oh, it can feel like an attack sometimes, even when it's not. I just feel like the occult and pagan and witchy spheres could do with more critical thinking and like being able to take a step back, being able to say, okay, all right, I can see your point of view, but it doesn't mean yours has to change. So yeah, I'm glad you're doing that. I'm glad you're in the space doing
Thanks.
that.
That's so sweet. Yeah.
Oh, I no, I
Um,
am. completely glad. Yeah, yeah, I mean it.
Yeah. And let me say this though. While I am self-aware enough to have this conversation, I'm not always self-aware enough to execute it well. Like,
Hmm.
like you said, like I know this, but there are things that threaten me. There are times where I don't feel comfortable. There are things that I don't like. And it is something that I actively work on all of the time. If you were to put a super right-wing MAGA person in front of me, I will get triggered. I will get upset. But I
Hmm.
try to challenge myself to understand that, okay, this what I'm saying is a threat to your ego, and that's why you're lashing out at me or you're trying to take away things from me or the people that I love, and better understanding that allows me to be compassionate better, but
Hmm.
I'm not always great at it. I'm really not. And I'm
Hmm.
aware of it and I'm working on it.
Yeah. I don't think anyone's gonna be 100% with it, right? No, even when you try your best, even an expert on it wouldn't really. Uh,
Yeah, not 100%, but yeah, some people are a
yeah.
lot better at it than I am for sure. I'm like, I am jealous of you. One day. Again, it's just a skill I need to hone.
Yeah. So, back to asking about Persephone and everything. So, since you've came at it from the understanding of archetypes, etc., and we've talked about have you actually had any supernatural experience? Like, what you
Yeah.
think could be her or yeah?
Yeah, I think one of the craziest things that really happened for me was I saw her in a dream. I have I haven't talked to this about this on my channel yet either. I haven't gotten to this point, but I did see her in a dream, and it was kind of crazy. Like I just and I also have been I think that like slowly I've been accessing more and more through dream work. And I've never done
Yeah.
dream work before, but I've been working through Psychic Witch, which everyone reads Psychic Witch. But I've really been trying to open up that sort of part of me and receive more. And I still find that in day-to-day life, when I'm conscious, it can be harder. But when I'm in a dream state, those like conscious walls that I have built up in order to make sense of my reality are down, right? So being able to access it, I do see her and experience her more in dream work. And you know, I I have been also working on I struggle with sleep paralysis and I have for a really long time, but I've recently been able to kind of turn my sleep paralysis into more of a lucid dreaming experience. So I've been working on that skill, which I haven't gotten super far with it, but I've been able to do a little bit with it. And that in pairing with divination afterwards, I've been able to communicate with her more and open up more.
Yeah. Oh, cool. That must be
Yeah.
scary. The sleep I've only ever had that like a handful of times, and
hmm
and then there is a supernatural thing around that as well that some people believe, the sleep paralysis demon kind of thing. Uh,
Yeah, so I don't have like an entity. A lot of people
mhm.
when they have sleep paralysis, they have like some sort of entity that like haunts them during the process. I have never had an entity like I've never felt that. For me, it's more just like my mind is lucid, but my body is asleep and I cannot move my body, so I'm just stuck. And a lot of times, especially if I'm stuck in like a nightmare, then yes, it can be very scary, especially because like I can't move. But recently, I've been able to better control that nightmare and turn it into something else. So instead, and not everyone's experience is like this. I'm very lucky. I've now been able to take my experience and do other things with it. And
Yeah,
kind of
that's
like
good.
explore. And I've just been like exploring instead of, and just kind of like, oh, my body's locked. What can I do with this time? I'm going to try to like enter the astral lucid dreaming world.
Yeah. Oh, so with your work with Persephone then, so what kind of thing do you do if you what you don't mind sharing? Like, do you do spell work or like what kind of thing do you do?
Yeah, what do I do with Persephone, man? Um, it's kind of like she's at this point in my craft, she's wrapped up in my everyday. She helps me make decisions first and foremost, like kind of thinking about like almost like a what would Jesus do, but sort of like thinking on Persephone, and she's kind of changed the way that I make decisions and the things that are important to me. And one of the things that I really asked her for is like, hey, can you help me step into my power? And I think ever since I've been working with Persephone and really working on my craft, my life has changed dramatically. I make different decisions than I did before. The things that are important to me, the things I spend my time on, is very different now. And I think that comes with sort of any big spiritual change
Yeah,
is you're going to spend more time in doing whatever you're doing, and you're going to have less time for certain friends. You're going to have less time for certain activities. So I feel like that is one of the things that like has really kind of changed for me is like bringing Persephone into, hey, can you help me make better decisions and can you help me achieve the things that I want to achieve? And I made a vision board last year in the middle of the year because I think you can make a vision board whenever you feel like it. And it was really working on my relationship with her and asking her for that. And that has really changed a lot. I mean, now I'm on YouTube, which I never expected myself to be on YouTube. And then I work with her at least once a week. I have a shrine that I keep up for her, or, altar, whatever anyone wants to call it. It's technically a shrine because I don't do spell work in it. I just leave
yeah.
offerings, stuff like that. So I have live plants in there that I help keep as offering to her. And I also regularly give her offerings and of incense. I commune and speak with her. I pull a lot of times when I do spell work, depending on what the spell is, a lot of times I pull her as an energy source.
Hmm.
Sometimes I do planetary energy, sometimes I do ground earth energy, and then there's sometimes a lot of times when I work with her, depending on what outcome I'm looking for. So I don't know, she's just wrapped up in pretty much everything that I do. My practice and craft is shaped around a lot around her. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah,
I
yeah,
keep
it
asking
does.
that after every
Does
single
that
time I
make
say.
sense? It does make sense because remember we talked about it's your reality, right? So
Yeah.
even if it didn't make sense to me, it does make sense, right?
Yeah. You're
I
right.
don't think that came from me. So I'm just saying
Mhm.
that. So all right. I don't know what so I know you mentioned Hecate. Like what is going on here, right? So how did you like start researching Persephone and like you were interested in Hecate. I know you're waiting for that. It's not if, it's when. I understand
Mhm.
that. But like how did you get into deities? Like how did you get to know about this? And like yeah.
Yeah. So I come from a new age angle. If I'm really going back to the very like genesis of all of this, is I came from a new age angle. In 2020 when new age like really blew up, that
Yeah.
was what I got kind of interested in was like I want to invite spirit back into my life. I want to invite magic. I literally said to my friend, I want to invite magic into my life. And it wasn't witchcraft at the time. But I was just interested in, and I've always been interested in other religions. So, I know a little bit about a lot, like Taoism, Buddhism, and like specifically a little bit more Zen Buddhism. And so I just kind of, and Native American shamanism, which I had a mentor and continue to talk to him sometimes, where I just was learning about all these different avenues. And I'm like, there's something here. I feel like there's spirit here, but I have a hard time connecting with it, especially with all the barriers that I put up during while I was an atheist. So I was just trying to like break down some barriers. And so I've just always been someone who's been very exploratory. And Christianity didn't really allow me that, although I learned a lot about different sects of and denominations of Christianity while I was a Christian. But I think that when I found chaos magic, it made a lot of sense to me because I'm like, this is a lot about what I personally like to do is I like to learn, figure out what works, and then I'm going to take what works for me as long as I have permission to, as long as it's an open practice, then I'm going to use what works for me. So working with deity, and again, a lot of times in my own craft, I'm challenging myself. Where am I weak and where can I grow a skill into? And one of the things that was like one of the things that really intimidated me was deity work. and I was like, how do I challenge myself to work with deity? And then I just started researching gods and goddesses from there. And I've always kind of been drawn to the Greek pantheon. As
Hmm.
a little kid, like a lot of times it's what we learn about in school. And
Yeah.
and Courtney Weber and I were talking about this on my channel, even like the structures that we see and like especially in the United States are like political. They have like or even our universities, they have
Hmm.
columns and like there's a lot of Greek influence and a lot of the buildings that we see in
Greco-Roman.
architectures that we see. Yeah. So I just have always felt drawn to the Greek pantheon and just a little bit more than others. I did try to work with more Korean gods and goddesses, but it was because I'm Korean American. I mentioned that. The only thing though is like Mudang is there's there's not a lot of information available to me. And I also just kind of, I don't know, I wasn't connecting with it, which I plan
Mm.
on still looking at that at some point. But I just felt like I was like, I'm just gonna, I could sit here and I can look through every single pantheon, but the Greek pantheon for me personally just felt right.
Hmm.
Um, I've never really been drawn to like Celtic or Norse or anything like that. So I feel like once I got it, this is me from a wide angle just telling you like how I worked my way down because I needed
Yeah,
to
yeah,
get down to somewhere. And then I just started looking in the Greek pantheon. And then again, like I said, dark goddess work. I was like, I know I want to work with a dark goddess. Okay, who are all the dark goddesses? And then started filtering through there.
yeah, yeah. Well, makes sense. I mean, even what you said about Persephone, I'm thinking about what you said before, how she is black and white, yin and yang, and but she's also not. I like this is something even when I've experienced Persephone. Yes, she's duality. A lot of underworld goddesses are duality, life and death. I think of Hel of the Norse pantheon. She's literally half alive, half dead, you know. But that's a very Hecatean thing as well. That's very like we believe that on the whole. And something I just wanted to say too while it's in my head, when you were on about how like there is a lot out there about Hecate and not as much about Persephone. Like I agree, because I remember trying to research Persephone myself, and there's not as much about her. There isn't. But a caveat with the Hecate stuff, so many people worship her or know her as whether it's an actual goddess, an archetype, but there's so many conflicting opinions and so many like people who will be like literally like fighting each other over it and I'm right, you're wrong and all the stuff we've touched on. So I really feel like you coming out in the open with your practice, with your gnosis, your way of doing things, I think that'll open some eyes for people and like help guide them because ultimately, whether you are working with a goddess or god that is dead popular from, I don't know, Zeus or something, mega popular guy, or like someone who's dead obscure from a pantheon in the Far East, for example, Korea. Isn't it? I forgot his name. The rabbit in the moon. That really makes me smile. I'm sure that's from
Yeah.
Korea, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think that it exists in Japan and China too. But yeah, the rabbit in the
yeah.
moon, that's
y-
actually really important imagery to me too. So
Yeah. But even if it is like you're drawn to something a bit more, I guess, obscure to us Westerners, let's put it like that. Like it's still your own personal gnosis, that you're
Mhm.
building, and I think that's important, and people kind of lose sight of that in a sense. So no, yeah,
Well, and I would take that even a step further because, like in chaos magic, I could even work with a comic book character. I could
yeah,
even work
yeah.
with I could work with like a book, a fictional character. Like if that gives you meaning and that gives you structure, and you can pull from that, then you can pull from that. My opinion on Hekate is so what I think about Hekate, and again, this is as someone who doesn't work with her but just has done basic research on her. I think that it's interesting to me that people get into arguments about Hekate because one, Hekate is a primordial goddess, right? Like she is before the Olympians took over. She is a very, 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 very old goddess.
Hmm.
And she's going to change over time, like
Hmm.
because gods and goddesses and deities in general need to change over time to fit, like I'm working with them to fit my needs. My needs are not the same as someone in ancient Greece,
Hmm.
and in between then and now, even in different locations in ancient Greece, people worked with Hekate differently because their needs were
Hmm.
different based on their land. A lot of times when we work with deity, it's to help us achieve something that maybe we don't have. And if I live in a different landscape and have different needs than someone else, the fact that you feel like Hekate helps you with something, your needs are different than mine. So
Yeah.
Hekate is going to show up differently for me. And, I think that it's interesting to me when people get into arguments about it because our needs are completely different. So she's gonna show up differently for me. I think
Hmm.
the other thing too is that Hecate specifically is a goddess of liminality. What does liminality mean? It means like almost where it is this amorphous space where potentiality is everything. So it's like for you to tell me that this goddess of liminality is limited to your understanding of her, like I feel like you don't even quite understand the basis of what liminality means. And that's up my hot take.
Yeah. But that is what, ego, what we were talking about before, how people are like ruled by it and they, can't see past it. And I've been guilty of it too in the past. Like there was a time where I was like, she's not linked with demons. Ah. And then actually she led me to that. So,
Yeah.
but she's linked with anything and everyone and Hecate, like, yeah, the liminal space is between literally everything. And if you boil it down, like if you zoomed right in, it could be in between every single atom and molecule of everything ever, really, if you really
Yeah.
zoomed in like that. But yeah, even over time, I mean, the Chaldeans said that she was the creator, in Orphicism, she's something else, and like you say, areas, even of the ancient world, even if we just said Greece, never mind anywhere else, it was cult worship. I mean, there is aspects of Hecate that is like Hecate Cori or core, like a bit like Persephone, where she is a maiden. She is like youthful and fulfills a similar role to Persephone, but it's going to depend, right? Uh, and I think people lose sight of that. It just in general, whether it's Hecate, Persephone, whoever. And like even when you were saying earlier, when you were on about yourself being like a maiden, for example, there will be some people out there who'll say, "Oh, that's reductive. That's like Wiccan." People will say stuff like that and be nasty about it because, well, it's happened to me. I
Yeah.
get people going, "Hecate is not a crone," and so fucking what? Yeah, like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that people who get upset about well, I have two things I want to say. First and foremost is I think that don't get me wrong, although we could argue all day long about what Hekate actually means and giving everyone permission to have their own experience is important. I also think that having personal gnosis around a deity, sorry, a collective gnosis on a deity is also important too because we need structure. We need
Yeah.
some agreed upon structure. So I do want to give like everyone permission to have their own experience, but ultimately we do need some structure and there's a balance of both, right? We need the structure, but we also need to give ourselves permission to have experiences as well. And
Yeah.
having that UPG versus the collective understanding of it and marry those together to make it work for you. But I think that if you want to tell me that Hekate is, a god of, I don't know, chairs, yeah, that doesn't work, like you can't, if that's like your experience, you'd be like, well, that's my
Yeah.
experience, okay, well, pop off, I guess, but we need to have a little bit of structure. So let me like pull back because I feel like I could like go in, like you said, to every single
Yeah.
molecule
I
and
know
break
what
it
you
down, but we
mean.
do need some structure and some understanding.
Yeah.
um the other
Yeah.
thing about people who get upset about reductive mindsets, I agree and disagree at the same time. This is how I feel. And first of all, it's a personal irk of mine of people who really crap on Wicca. I
Mhm.
understand why people don't like Wicca. However, we cannot argue that Wicca is not an incredible, important part to the history of why we practice now and how we practice now. Just like crapping on the
Mm-hmm.
Golden Dawn, Wicca is based off Golden Dawn. Golden Dawn's really important,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, are there things about the Golden Dawn that aren't great? Yes, of
Mm-hmm.
course. That's why things need to change and transform. But that does not mean at the time it didn't serve a purpose. And
Exactly.
so it's like, can we look at things and hold multiple truths? Can we understand that it was important to what we believe today? Yes. And can we honor that? Yes. But can we also understand that there are things that are wrong with it and to change and transform?
Yeah.
Yes. And
Yeah.
like, why does it have to be one or the other? Why can't we just understand it for the
I know.
complex, situation that it is? And people who don't like reductive thinking, I understand why you don't like reductive thinking, but we need reductive thinking in order to build the foundations to hold more complex issues. Like I
Mm-hmm.
said, not everything is black and white, but sometimes breaking things down into black and white gives me an understanding. And
Mm-hmm.
then I can build on there. But everything being complex all of the time, where is there a foundation and where is there
Mm-hmm.
structure? And we need that in order to better understand the world around us.
Mm-hmm. We do. And I agree with the Wiccan thing as well. Like when I said that, I've argued about this on my channel before and I've defended Wicca because although yes, okay, there's some you could argue cultural appropriation in it. Gerald Gardner had to walk so we could run because if Wicca was not founded as a religion and not recognized as a religion, we wouldn't be sitting here. We wouldn't be allowed to be publicly witches. There would be laws that would still be in place that have been abolished and stuff like that. Uh, so yeah, he had to walk so we could run, like they all did, and even Wicca now has evolved. There are Wiccans that don't believe in like the ye olde traditionally kind of
Hmm.
Wicca. So even that evolves. So yeah, there's one. I have brought it up before, but the one occultist, he's insulted me once because he didn't. Long story short, I rubbed him up the wrong way. He called me a fat Wiccan that stabs her foot in graveyards. And I know, right? But the thing is, even in the occult, right? A lot of occultists talk about Cain being, this is a niche thing, about Cain, like of Cain and Abel, being the father of witches and stuff. Well, that comes from Wicca.
Oh,
A guy in the
okay.
60s basically made his own spin-off from Wicca. I think it's called the Cult of Tubal Cain or something like that. Anyways, it's based on the foundation of Wicca. So even your demonology stuff has a foundation in that, and these people, not everyone, but the reactive types that like to use that as an insult, it's like what you believe has foundation in that. Like, and really, it all boils from the Golden Dawn, because even the lemur comes from that, really, as well. And like that branch,
Hmm.
you may know more than me if you've studied ceremonial magic, but it all comes from somewhere, and it's just humans. At the end of the day, we're just humans arguing.
Yeah. And like, where does Golden Dawn come from? Golden Dawn has a lot of East Asian methodologies in there. Even Golden Dawn, if we really look at it, is appropriative. But we have to understand what a lot of times when we look at things in antiquity, there I feel like there are two schools of people that I see. There are some people who are like, the only way to practice is the way that they practice in antiquity, which I'm like, okay, well, I wouldn't be allowed to exist in antiquity, because I'm
Exactly.
multiracial. So don't tell me that the only way that I need to practice is how people in the past did it. That doesn't, just because something is old doesn't make it more valid.
Exactly.
Although I do understand, like, it's a collective gnosis, but that's a whole different conversation that we can go into. The other school that I see is people who look at things through a modern lens, and then they see like, but cultural appropriation it was an issue, but it wasn't something that people were taught or understood. So for
Mm,
you to use modern day understandings of, hey, this is how we respect other people's cultures, I understand that. And I think it's a very, very, very important topic to hold on and to honor other people's cultures, but also to get mad at people in the past who did not know better, who were just doing what they thought was right and that made sense to them, to hold them and say that what they believe is not okay. Like, you're not giving them credit either. He didn't know. Like, those people in the past, they did not know. They were just going based off their reality. And again, it's like this idea that, like, you need to demonize everything that doesn't work within your your understanding is like
Hmm.
it doesn't help us grow and it doesn't help conversation.
Yeah, agree. Like I could just totally agree. I know I just yeah, I don't want to like yeah, I could go on rants about that, but yeah, like oh, like agreeing with you. I mean like yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyways, because I'm noticing the time too, and I don't want to keep you forever and ever.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, I didn't even realize. I'm like time has flied
I
because
know it
I
has.
have you know what, I'm kind of scared about this interview. I'm going to be honest because I feel
Oh,
like some of the things that I'm saying, a lot of people are going to disagree with. And I do want to give caveats. One, you're allowed to disagree with me. And two, if anyone wants to better educate me on certain topics that I've talked about that you feel like are
mhm.
not right, then let me know because I'm
Yeah.
open to conversation. I'm open to growing as an individual and being educated.
So going back to deity work, I want to ask, so have you actually worked with any other deities aside from Persephone?
No, I
No.
haven't. Yeah. So I have gotten these, so synchronicity and obviously is a big part of deity work, and at least for most people. And I have gotten hits from other deities. I have. And I am conscientiously focusing on my relationship with Persephone on purpose,
Yeah.
mainly because, like I said, I am a chaos witch. I see the value in different paradigms, and I am also have ADHD. So the dopamine hit that I get from starting something new and not finishing what I'm working on is something that I personally struggle with. So my work with Persephone is very concentrated. So I gave myself a time limit. When I finish the pomegranate path, which I'm going to finish in the spring, I'm allowed to, if I like, start working with a new deity. However, right now I'm hyper focusing just because I need discipline and I need structure and I need focus sometimes, or else I'll be like, ooh, I'm gonna do this. Ooh, I'm gonna start this. Ooh, I'm gonna start that. So, no, I haven't worked with any other deity other than Persephone. And I mean, you could argue the Christian god in the past, but ultimately, no, it's just
No.
Persephone and that's on purpose and it's structured very specifically that
Yeah.
way.
Cool. Well, if you don't mind me asking, just to quickly ask, who do you think it might have been that you've had like a synchronicity for?
Oh yeah, I talked about it in one of my vlogs. I feel like I definitely got a hit from Hades and I definitely got a couple signs from Hecate. And again,
Yeah.
like I feel like with Hecate, like we just have this like understanding, like
Yeah.
I'm I'll see you
I'll
when I
see
see
you,
you sort of
girl.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and I will say this, and I know that people are gonna argue with me. I see Hecate and Persephone as partly the same energy. Like I really
Yeah.
do. And some
Yeah, I
people,
can get
they
that.
don't like mother, maiden, crone. They really don't like that. And because it wasn't true in antiquity and that's not how they see them, me and my friend Justin, you've had Justin on your channel, Justin Bennett, have gotten
Hmm.
because we disagree on this. And I mean, he works with her and I don't. So my opinion may change, but
Mm.
I just see like I see the launching from Persephone into Hecate makes a lot of sense for me personally.
Hmm.
But yeah, also Hades, I just feel like I'm right now I'm just in my chthonic era. Like I'm just
Mm.
enjoying the chthonic energy and the underworld energy, and it makes a lot of sense for my life right now. So
Yeah.
everything's kind of in that realm.
Yeah.
The only other goddess outside of all of that that I have considered working with is Aphrodite. Um, and that is just like a very sort of like I wanted to kind of again step into my power, but I've actually found a lot of the answers that I felt like I would have thought I would get from Aphrodite from Persephone actually.
Yeah. You could argue, like, really, it's a big melting pot. The way I see deities sometimes it is kind of interchangeable with the archetype energy, and they're all different faces of the same thing. I mean, Hecate's got me down that rabbit hole, sharing that gnosis on my channel. Even today, I've filmed stuff comparing it to like Baphomet, for example, like totally left field, I suppose. But when
Hmm.
it comes to Aphrodite as well, like Aphrodite and Persephone in the myths had a rivalry over, I think it was Adonis. They were like, "Who's the most beautiful?" It's me. Oh no, it's me. Like they had a little argument about it.
Hmm.
But in a sense, it's like the beauty aspect. It's the life aspect, like the bringing life aspect that can be seen as one as in the same in that sense. How you sense Hecate and Persephone, like to me, anyways. And Aphrodite does have aspects to her that are quite dark as well, just like Persephone.
Yeah.
And there is a tablet I've got. It's way over there. I'm not going to get up again and like moon the world again because there was a fire earlier. Like literally, like oh, sorry, there's a fire. Uh, witches leaving candles unattended. Don't do it, guys. Uh, there's like a tablet I've got that's a reproduction of something from antiquity, where it is Persephone, Melano, which you may end up meeting her, and Hecate. And it's like a Trinity sort of vibe. I mean, I'm sure there was some cult worships where it was like Maiden Mother Crone, technically in antiquity with Hecate, Demeter, and Persephone. I'm sure there was
Yeah.
something. Yeah.
Whether or not Hecate was a part of that, I don't know, but I can talk about the like Thesmophoria and the Eleusinian mysteries, and
Hmm.
those always Persephone always comes with Demeter. I didn't even mention Demeter, but Demeter is already something that like you cannot really work with Persephone without, like having
Without
Demeter
mum.
bleed into it a little bit. Um, so yeah, I think that Demeter, I always joke about this, like the Greek pantheon, at least from my experience, is like a gateway drug. Like you start working with one deity, you're gonna start working with all of them. Like it just
Yeah.
starts like snowballing into, oh, what about this? What about that? Which is one of the reasons why I feel like I'm so strict with myself because I'm like, I could like start with all these deities, but I really need to
Mm.
focus. But yeah,
No, I get it.
I have like these ideas of where I think my practice is going to go, but I really try not to be as stringent on it because I will see what shows up for me and what works for me, and I'm just gonna be
Yeah.
open to whatever that looks like.
Yeah, that's a good way to be, because I had to F around and find out, as Justin would
Yeah.
say that as well. You fuck around, and find out.
Hmm.
But it's true. I had to do that. At one time, I well overwhelmed myself, and I had like gods from all over the joint, like because I was exploring ancestry and potential past life work, and then like oh, it got so overwhelming. So. Yeah, just take it as it comes. And leading on to the last question, I just wanted to say if you had any advice for beginners, but I think that would be a good start, like take it as it comes. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that I do actually have some advice from beginners, but it's actually not my advice. So I did an interview with Jamie Wagner, who's a Hades devotee. She wrote Hades, uh, and she had advice that I feel like is going to be advice that I give everyone from now on. And so it's the first step is when you are starting to work with something, ask yourself, how do you feel about it? The
Hmm.
second thing is to do research that's been like, we all agree that this is the answer. And the
Yeah.
third thing is then talk to people about it. And so I feel like a lot of times when we get into deity work, especially these younger witches who are on TikTok, who are, like we are like, oh, I'm interested in this topic. So we, instead of asking ourselves, what does it feel like for me? We dive into something like TikTok where there's all these opinions, a lot of fear mongering, a lot of like, have to understand a lot of what's online is engineered to create a reaction so
Hmm.
that you can get more views and clicks. So whether or not that person is conscientiously doing that, ultimately we are all kind of the slave to the algorithm when we put content up. So if you go into stuff understanding that some of the times that you see are just clickbait material, it's fear mongering or it's to make you feel hyper good about it. Either way, if it gets a reaction out of you, if it makes you angry, that is successful to the algorithm.
Hmm.
So I think that I see a lot of fear mongering, although I think that this is something that needs to be approached with respect. Ask yourself really truly how you feel, because I think that a lot of people who come from other religions too, we have a lot of, and I can speak from Christianity specifically, there's a lot of fear that there's a God who's watching everything that I do, judging everything that I do, and he's waiting for me to mess up. And that was my experience with
Hmm.
Christianity, right? Like if I mess up, I'm going to go to hell, or like I'm inherently bad, I'm inherently filled with sin, and like it is my job to absolve myself, although he's already absolved me from that sin, but to continue on that, like it, really kind of working on deconditioning and asking yourself, how do I feel about something? I think is the first and foremost most important thing that you can do, and that gets lost between the over inundation of information that we have today.
Yeah. Yeah. All I could think of, I don't mean to make light of what you've said or anything. It's just The Santa Claus song. He sees you when you're sleeping.
Yeah,
When you like it literally is, isn't
it's
it?
creepy.
Yeah, that's Christian God, isn't it?
It
You better
is.
watch out. You better not cry or whatever. You
Yeah,
better
are
watch
you naughty
out.
or nice?
Yeah,
Hmm.
exactly.
And
Mm-hmm,
I mean, but I think that that's like that's interesting though, because let's talk about that. What is that used to do? It's used to control behavior in children.
mm-hmm,
Like,
mm-hmm,
hey, if you want something good, you need to, he's watching you. So like
mm-hmm,
now we kind of like take that and zoom that out, but we apply that to young kids and also adults. It's still this like, and that's why I feel like a lot of times in politics, Christianity is used, at least from where I live, Christianity is used a lot for control
mm-hmm.
because, it's like we see you, we're watching you, you
Yeah.
better be good.
Yeah, it's just think of the Santa Claus song. It literally is that. Santa Claus is coming to town, isn't it? Yeah, yeah. Anyways, so I'll just say like thank you. Obviously, thank you for being here. It's been a pleasure. Uh, and I hope I haven't put you off doing more interviews on other people's channels because the whole house was nearly burning down and like some of the difficult things we've talked about too. I know it's been
Yeah.
didn't expect that, to be honest.
Yeah. Uh, you know what? Thank you so much for having me on your channel. I don't know if this is how where you thought the interview was going to go. Um, I just I don't know. This is my first interview, so I don't know how interviews are supposed to go. But I hope that it's like good content for you.
Yeah,
I don't know.
no, I think it's been useful in many ways, and this is words. This is the thing. When I have people on the channel, I can never shut up, and I don't know. I just talk and we just end up where we're meant to end up, right? And if
Hmm.
it comes out, it comes out. It's obviously meant to come out for a reason. Yeah, that's the way I see it. So thank you again and take care, everyone. And like I say on my channel, stay safe, stay witchy. Right, bye.